All right, so you got shredded, you finished your cut, you're actually lean. So what do we do now? Do we stay lean? Do we maintain? Do we bulk? Do we do like a transition phase? Do we titrate up our calories? What is the go? How do we put on mass from here? Because that's probably what you're thinking. You're probably busting at the seams to put on mass.
There's a few ways to go about it. We'll start here. There's two numbers you need to know. I'm just gonna put some random arbitrary numbers up here. So what calories did you start your cut at? And then what calories did you finish your cut at? So let's just say I started my cut eating 3,000 calories. That's what I was eating at the end of my bulk. Maybe I stagnated a bit. I wasn't getting any more weight. So that was probably my maintenance. I finished my cut at 1,800 calories and the end of the cut was also pretty slow. So what actually happens when we cut weight? Because we probably kept dropping the calories as we plateaued, because this is probably what your calorie intake looked like. This is where you finished 1,800 and you started up here at 3,000, right? You probably dropped it down to 26, then maybe 22, then finally you finished at 1,800. And the reason we did that was because, well, our metabolism adapted, right? It just kept adjusting and it kept plateauing. And although I think people over-exaggerate the effect of metabolic adaptation, anecdotally outside of science, and even the professionals will agree, you can crash your metabolism pretty hard. So for me personally, when I cut, I actually did titrate down too quick and my metabolism got stupidly low. I was eating like a bird and I wasn't even losing any more weight.
And so essentially why this has happened, why you've had that metabolic adaptation, is because all the body processes have down-regulated to now accommodate for that calorie intake, so that everything's working good, right? It wouldn't be normal for the body to just be constantly in that state of freaking the fuck out because you don't have enough calories. It is smart enough to down-regulate everything to accommodate for daily living at these calories, as simplified as that is.
So we're here. Now, do we just go back to where we were? Do we go back into the bulk? Our bulk was 3,000 calories, right? That's the number in your head. I bulk on 3,000 calories. Well, the problem with this, and why you probably don't want to do it, is because you're literally going back up to here. And what happens to your metabolism? It doesn't shoot up that quick. It really doesn't. It adapts quite slowly, and that's why you just had to keep titrating down. This has no scientific backing, by the way. This is just for visual understanding. I don't want to get any of those comments. Your metabolism will slowly ramp back up, slowly, and it might catch up eventually. But what's happening here in all this space? Well, you are in well over 1,000 calorie surplus for quite a while. And we know that is far too much if we just want lean mass gain. So we can conclude we are going to be rebounding and gaining a ton of fat in this time frame, especially once you drop your calories super low and your body wants to hold on to fat and store fat for survival.
And the reason we can come to that conclusion isn't because we've read 1,000 articles, although we have done a lot of studying on nutritional evidence. This is mainly just from looking at client results, from looking at our own results in the past, the mistakes we've made, and that's how we'll always like form these opinions. It's from real world implementation of, bulking and cutting and doing it ourselves for almost half a decade now. This is what we have seen happen time and time again, especially with our clients.
And there is actually a case to be made about we are super insulin sensitive around this time. Our body is sensitive to nutrients and we can take advantage of that by upping the calories super high and just having a great response in terms of insulin sensitivity and growing really fast right out of the gate from that cut. And yeah, that is a decent argument, but we're still gonna hold on to far too much fat and it's gonna make this process just as miserable as last time. So I think we all pretty much know where I'm getting to with this. We need to just reverse out. It's a reverse diet, okay? It's very simple, right? I've been talking about it 1,000 times. It's a reverse diet and it just fucking makes sense. We are building up our metabolism to as high as we can actually get it. We will hit a wall. Our metabolism is not gonna go up to about 6,000 calories unless you're a mass monster. For the average person, it's probably not gonna climb much higher than 3,500.
And also in terms of what we're actually trying to do in a bulk, which is fuel muscle growth, we don't need to go straight back up to it. We don't need to go to some crazy calorie surplus to try and fast track muscle gain. That's not how the human body works. You can only gain a certain amount of muscle in a given time period. So this is like the most optimal way to do it for how your body works.
And so obviously this video is applied to people that have finished their cut, but I know there's also a small subsector of people that are watching this in anticipation of the end of their cut. Like they're already looking at what they should be doing at the end, even though they just started their cut. Let's just worry about this first. And if you are trying to cut and get down to 10% body fat to hit this point where we can now have the fun part and go back into a bulk, go to that first link in the description. We are taking on our last applicants for the 4-week challenge in December. Most of you know we're taking on 10 guys to work one-on-one extremely closely. You get our phone number and everything, and we coach you to get shredded. So for the guys that are still stuck up here or have struggled to get down here in the past, let's help you out a little bit. you know where to go.
All right, so that was nutrition, which is 90% of it. Now, let's look at training. How do we preserve muscle mass on this cut and then work our way back up so we get our strength back and actually put on size? So in terms of training volume, regardless of any split or training program that you're running, you want to keep the volume roughly the same right up until we're getting ready for this bulk. And I would honestly hit a deload, resensitize yourself to volume, and clear up any micro injuries or major injuries that you've got. Really just hit a big reset, right? You're not going to lose muscle mass, okay? It's a massive fear of guys. It is more beneficial for you to recover. That is like how you build muscle in the first place, is by recovering. If you can't recover, you can't grow. Volume should be the same. You should be lifting with intensity throughout this whole deficit to ensure you're not actually losing muscle mass, but a deload will be beneficial right at the tail end of this cut.
And that's also because we are accumulating quite a bit of fatigue, especially if we're in a big deficit. Like Nelson said, our body is down regulating its processes to be able to live off that 1800 calories. So our recovery capacity will be far less. So once we're training at our normal intensity, we will be accumulating fatigue, and this deload will essentially drop our fatigue back to a manageable level where we're fresh, we're ready, and we're actually excited to get back into training as well, even just mentally, to be able to push ourselves and progressively overload during the bulk, because now that's when we're actually growing and putting on size, which is the goal. And I know you guys love numbers. I almost forgot to get into the numbers. Let's just say you were at 1800 here. I would increase it by no more than 200 calories at a time. So you might go 2000 here, 2.2 here, 2.4, and I would do that maybe once a week. But it's pointless saying numbers because everyone's body responds very differently. So just use your anecdote. Are you putting on body fat? If you're gaining any more than half a pound a week in weight, you are gaining weight too quick. You need to just keep the calories a little bit lower. And I did not mention weight on the scale at all in this video because that is fucking irrelevant. Stop chasing a weight on a scale. It is an illusion. It is lying to you. Our weight fluctuates in terms of water, in terms of glycogen. It's going to spike up here because you're going to be getting more glycogen. It might even spike towards the end of your cut because your fatigue is high, your cortisol is high. You're going to retain water. The weight fluctuates so much, and it's super dangerous for guys to just chase some weight at the end of their bulk. The amount of times I've heard guys say, I'm 70 kilos, so keen to get into the bulk, I want to be 80 at the end of my bulk. My brother in Christ, you could blast 2 grams of gear. You are not gaining 10 kilos of lean muscle mass in a bulk. Okay, even if 2 to 3 kilos of that is glycogen, you're not gaining 8 kilos in a bulk. Unless it's literally the second you've stepped into the gym or you went from completely natural to blasting 2 grams of gear. Yes, you might gain that in a cycle. If you're natural, that's going to take over a year of multiple bulk and cut cycles. Our body grows contractile tissue at a depressingly slow rate. I'm sorry I didn't make the rules. That's just how it is.
In terms of tracking weight, when you do go ahead and track weight, just track weekly averages. Don't push for some arbitrary number like this, but just track weekly averages to get you a good idea of where you're at. And I'm talking butt-ass naked in the morning, not on the fucking gym scale with your hoodie on and trackies. That's not your weight. So just track weekly averages and don't set some ridiculous goal.
And when we're titrating up our calories, a majority of that, if not all of it, is simply just coming from carbs. Our protein basically stays the same. You're dropping the protein a little bit once you start bumping up the calories because carbohydrates are protein sparing. So if you were 70 kilos, maybe you're having 190 grams of protein. As we build up, we might finish at 170 grams of protein, but our carbohydrates are the wild card. So if we were having 200 here, we might bump that up by 50 at a time. So you're having 250, 300, 350. There you go. You're bumping up your calories by 200 each time, and it's simply coming from 50 grams of carbs.
Yeah, so that is exactly what you do after you get shredded. You're titrating down your calories in a normal calorie deficit, and then you're reversing out almost with the same process in reverse. So that is the process. Now, I know that looked extremely complicated and complex, and that's because it is. And everyone is so different. That's why bodybuilders have personalized coaches, right? We can throw out all these arbitrary numbers, but they don't really mean anything for your gym progress, right? Okay, you can probably pull them as examples and work out something based on your own approach, but it's all very dependent on your goals, how your body responds to nutrients, and so on and so forth. So, like we said, if you do want that assistance, you can join that waitlist and we can help you get down to 10% body fat. We have done this with hundreds of guys by now. We also did it with ourselves.
Subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one.
Peace.